Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and today's video is going to be a fun one. In today's video, by popular demand, I have built XL Wailmer to test it out with its new move of SCALD. Wailmer is a pure water type Pokemon with the moveset of Water Gun, Body Slam, and SCALD. It's definitely on the spicier side of things, but it has some pretty good bulk, and it can be a nice core breaker to the many Skarmory plus Mudboy teams that are running around. I didn't have high expectations, but I ended up having a ton of fun with Wailmer and with this team as a whole. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and let's go Wailmer. Hopping into the first match, picking up a very nice lead, Wailmer into SWAMPERT. This team has 3 good checks to SWAMPERT. SWAMPERT is going to farm up a ton of energy and then safe switch into Registeel, and Registeel is a bit of a problem for this team. I'm going to immediately fire off the SCALD with the Wailmer. Unfortunately, the RNG is not on my side and I'm not able to get a debuff. I try and go for the Zap Cannon catch, but unfortunately I slightly mistime it, so my opponent is able to grab my shield with the Zap Cannon. They do get the attack debuff, but Wailmer is doing a ton of damage to this Registeel, getting it deep into the red. I'm going to fire off the SCALD. That will be shielded by the Reggie. We switch into the Dragonair and catch what should hopefully be a Zap Cannon, and it is. And now I'm just going to look to commit to the farm down, but the switch clock is up. In comes the opponent SWAMPERT, but they're not able to make the Earthquake before I make it to the Body Slam. This is debuff, so my opponent will be able to no-shield here, but that is perfectly fine, because I'm going to no-shield back, and then I can choose to send in Credilli and get a nice energy lead. This way, I can keep the Wailmer pretty healthy for whatever my opponent has in the back, and I have a feeling, if they have a SWAMPERT, there's probably a Skarmory lurking in the back. Opponent basically only has 1 HP left on the Reggie, and we find out in the back it is going to be the Steel Wing Skarmory. Rock Slide, gets some nice damage, and in comes Wailmer. Steel Wing is resisted. They have basically no fast move pressure here, and they're going to need to land a Brave Bird to get the KO. I go for the SCALD. Skarmory firing off energy. Tough decision to make. I commit the shield. It's the Sky Attack bait. Are they going to be able to make it to a Brave Bird? Skarmory does not get there. Wailmer makes the SCALD. SCALD is going to secure the knockout onto the Skarmory. All that's left in the back is the 1 HP Registeel, and we take the win. Moving into the next match, leading Wailmer into Toxicroak. I'm going to be staying in this lead as I don't want to see the Toxicroak aligned against my Credilli. Toxicroak banks a bunch of energy. Opponent now going to save switch into Lickitung, and I'm just going to fire off the SCALD. I'm fishing for a debuff. SCALD does a ton of damage. Unfortunately, still no debuff. I'm going to farm up, switch into Credilli, and I get the Bullet Seed through as I make the catch. This is quite big, as this way I can get some value out of Credilli that does not involve it getting stuck against the Toxicroak. I fire off the Rock Slide here. I think it should be enough to KO, but the Lickitung lives on 1 HP. A miscalculation is going to cost me having to take a Power Whip from the Lickitung. I get the farm down, but the opponent can send back in the Toxicroak. Toxicroak, however, is going to fire off its energy. Mud Bomb will not KO. I'm going to be able to withstand this damage with a fraction of HP and make the resisted Rock Slide. Rock Slide would get them low, so Toxicroak is going to shield the resisted move. Now I send in Dragonair, and in the back, the opponent has Bastiodon. So this is a pretty common team that we've seen in previous seasons, but instead of Toxicroak, they used to run Medicham. I'm able to land that Aqua Tail, and now back in comes the Wailmer. Wailmer firing off the SCALD into the Bastiodon. Super effective damage. Bastiodon going to fire off the Stone Edge. At this point, I'm running out of HP, so I have to shield something. I'm going to go for the full Water Gun farm down with the Wailmer. I'm going to let the Bastiodon get me lower, so that way they don't get as much farm. Now they only get 1 counter with the Toxicroak. Body Slam will grab the final shield, and then I can send in the Dragonair, and Dragonair will make quick work of the Toxicroak, and that's a good game. We've got a big problem in the next match, leading Wailmer into Azumarill, and this is a massive core breaker for this team. I'm going to farm up a ton of energy with the Wailmer, look to switch into Credilli, getting the catch and getting the Bullet Seed through as well. This is definitely going to be a committee that is needed to get rid of this Azumarill. In comes Vigoroth. Vigoroth will be met with the Rock Slide. Vigoroth can tank any one move here, so they are going to no-shield. I continue to farm with the Credilli. We're going to see the charge move thrown by the Vigoroth. It is the Body Slam, and Body Slam will unfortunately allow them to farm down. I send in the Wailmer. I don't really want to take additional damage, so I'm just going to fire off the SCALD. SCALD will pick up the knockout onto the Vigoroth. Opponent sends back in the Azu, but the important thing here is they have almost no fast move pressure, and I've kept it so that I am still not in play rough range. I fire off the Body Slam. Azu, now below half health, suddenly looks a lot more manageable. Azu will go for the Play Rough. Now I'm going to send in the Dragonair. These Dragon Breaths are double resisted, but here's the thing. Every fast move is guaranteed to do at least 1 damage, so I'm doing 1 damage per Dragon Breath here. Ice Beam will be shielded in the back. It's Defense Deoxys, and things are looking playable despite the terrible lead. Body Slam will be shielded. Dragonair farm it up and go in for another Body Slam, putting a lot of pressure onto the opponent here. They're gonna no shield. Deoxys farm it up, trying to make it to the double Psycho Boost. They get there, but they lose CMP to the Dragonair, and that is absolutely massive for me, as now they're stuck throwing the Psycho Boost. They were forced to burn the final shield, and I can close out this game with Wailmer. Let's go, Wailmer. I'm going to be shielding up here. They're going to fire the Psycho Boost. Their switch timer will be up. In comes the Azu. I'm going to look to overfarm with the Wailmer and play to the CMP tie as Azu makes it to the move. Body Slam will secure the knockout. There's still the Deoxys left in the back. Can we live the counters? Yes, we can. Wailmer putting the team on his back, taking down Deoxys and securing the win. We've got a problem in the next match, leading Wailmer into Registeel, and my team is extremely weak to Regi. I'm going to stay in with the Wailmer to start. As you can see, the water guns do add up onto the Regi, but Regi is going to strike first with the Zap Cannon. I commit the shield, and my opponent does get the attack debuff. That is quite unfortunate. I'm going to return fire with the Scald. Scald definitely going to do some nice chip damage onto the Regi, and I'm continuing to farm up here. I switch into the Dragonair as my opponent fires off the Zap Cannon. This is still going to do a lot of damage, but at the very least, it's a move I can survive. In comes Vigoroth. Vigoroth can pretty comfortably just go for a no-shield farm down here, considering that I am debuffed. They can tank that Body Slam, and they're going to leave with quite a lot of energy. In comes the Wailmer. Unfortunately, it didn't look like I got the water gun through there as they fired off the Body Slam. Body Slam will connect into the Wailmer, and they have 2. This is a tough call to make. I decide to use the final shield on the Wailmer because I think I can go for the farm down, but it turns out I cannot. A miscalculation, and I'm in deep trouble. I don't have switch, I'm down 2 shields, and it's a lantern in the back, so the Wailmer isn't even particularly useful here. I send in Credilli. They're going to fire off the Surf to ensure that I get into Focus Blast range, and then they can send in the Regi. I have a lot of energy, and the Regi is very low on health, so Regi is going to have to put up shields here. I fire off Rock Slide number 1, I make it to Rock Slide number 2, and they are going to have to double shield here. That's exactly what they're going to do. Registeel will go for the Focus Blast, and now I have to try and go for a Water Gun farm down with the Wailmer. I'm gonna need so much energy to beat the Lantern. Wailmer, can I get the farm down? Yes, it does! Is this possible? I have a ton of energy on the Wailmer. Body Slams will do a solid amount to the Lantern. The question is, can I make it to a 3rd Body Slam? I'm going for Body Slam number 2. This is going to get the Lantern into the yellow health. Come on, Wailmer, get to the Body Slam. We get there, but the spark registers, and we lose the game. Speaking of Lantern, we see it on the lead in the next match. Wailmer's got to switch out. In comes Credilli. Opponent is going to respond with Vigoroth, but this is a pretty playable matchup for Credilli. I'm going to be firing off the Grass Knot. Grass Knot is going to connect, dealing pretty significant damage to the Vigoroth. Very nice charge move timing by the opponent as they fire off their energy just before I make it to the Rock Slide. Body Slam will connect. Opponent going for another move, but if it's the Body Slam, it's not going to be enough to KO. Credilli barely able to hang on, and this time I decide to go for the Grass Knot. It is harder hitting than the Rock Slide. It'll guarantee switch or a shield, and the opponent is going to commit a shield. In comes the Wailmer. Wailmer going to look for the 0 shield farm down here. I don't really want to shield the Wailmer, considering that I know there's going to be the Lantern awaiting it. Instead, I'm saving shields for Dragonair. Dragonair into the Lantern. Opponent staying in, and they aren't enough for a Thunderbolt. I will respect it with a shield, and I'm just going to continue to farm. What do they have in the back? They have Talonflame in the back. So unfortunately, I couldn't get the Wailmer aligned onto the Talonflame, but the Shadow Dragonair is about to prove its worth. Dragonair able to fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail going to hit for massive super effective damage, taking down the Talonflame. Back in comes the Lantern. I'm going to make it to a Body Slam, and the switch clock should be up soon. It's time for Wailmer to flip the script. In comes the Wailmer, making it to the Body Slam, and this will KO the opponent. Wailmer is a Lantern counter confirmed, and that's a good game. Picking up a tough lead in the next match, Wailmer into Unova Stunfisk. Both Pokemon hit each other for super effective damage, but Stunfisk has a pacing advantage. I try and go for a switch into Credilli, but my opponent is able to hold on to their energy, and they're going to send in Vigoroth. Again, this is perfectly fine for Credilli. I fire off the Grass Knot. Opponent is actually going to shield the first. They're firing off energy. I am not going to be shielding in this matchup as they fire off Body Slam after Body Slam. I continue to farm up with the Credilli. Opponent firing off another move, but this should not be enough to KO. I should be able to tank this with the Credilli and fire off the last second Grass Knot just before I get KO'd by counters. Grass Knot will connect, so I do have a shield advantage. In comes the Wailmer. Wailmer just looking for a farm down here, looking to try and get some energy to threaten the Ufisk. The opponent's already down a shield, so I'm hoping that they're not going to be going for another shield. I fire off the Scald. Scald will hit for a super effective damage onto the Ufisk. Decision time for the opponent. They shield. I get the attack debuff. And here, I'm just going to let this go. I'm trusting in Dragonair to win the game. It's only a Mud Bomb in the back. Oh no, it's Skarmory. This is really tough. And now their decision to shield makes sense because they were actually quite weak to Wailmer in the back. And this is going to be really, really tough for Dragonair to try and clutch this game. Dragonair firing off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail will connect into the Skarmory, and I think I just need to try and leave this with an Aqua Tail. An Aqua Tail will not KO, but maybe an Aqua Tail plus a Body Slam from the Wailmer will be enough to get me the win. But taking a look at that health, it's going to be really tough for Wailmer to make it to a move, but it's what I need to win the game. Aqua Tail gets the KO. In comes the Stunfisk, and I have the back-to-back stored here. Going for the second Aqua Tail. That connects. In comes the Wailmer, but the opponent has a move stored. I cannot make it to a Body Slam, and unfortunately, we lose the game. Speaking of Stunfisk, we've got the Galarian one on the lead in the next match. Wailmer, pretty nice matchup here. Opponent is going to save switch into the Pelipper, and I'm going to send in Dragonair. Dragonair firing off the Body Slam. Looked like it was a CMP tie. Honestly, throughout all these sets today, the game felt quite stuttery, so times when I tried to throw potentially one turn before they made it to a move just ended up being CMP ties. They bait with a Weather Ball, but then they only go for the Weather Ball. I can very confidently no shield here. However, they went for the Weather Ball, understanding that they can make it to another if I try and farm down, so I will have to commit a shield here. But this way I get to leave with energy, and Aqua Tail will do some very nice damage onto the Galarian Stunfisk. Opponent knows that. They send in a Medicham, and honestly I haven't seen a Medicham in quite some time this season. I go for the Body Slam, I pivot back into the Wailmer, I'm farming up, and I'm going for the Scald. This is gonna hurt. Medicham, only one shield remaining. They let it go. I get the debuff. It forces the switch out, and in comes the Galarian Stunfisk. Stunfisk going for the Earthquake, but guess what? That's not going to KO. Wailmer withstands the damage, making it to the Scald. Let's go, Wailmer. This Scald will hit for super effective damage, getting the shield from the opponent, and the opponent is going to get the farm down. I'm going to send in Credilli. Credilli definitely not going to appreciate the neutral Earthquakes here, but I am able to tank it fairly well. I'm just going to look to massively overfarm as the Credilli and go for the Grass Knot. Grass Knot will be enough to KO. I thought about going for a slight undercharge here, but it is still enough to KO. In comes the Medicham. Here, I definitely could have just gone for the Grass Knot. I knew I'd get to the Rock Slide, but either way, both moves will KO, and we take the game. Hopping into the final match, we've got one more Lantern ready to greet the Wailmer. I'm going to save switch into my Credilli. Opponent responds with a Toxicroak, and you could not start off with much worse of a way to begin a game. Losing lead and losing switch. I'm farming up. I'm going for the Grass Knot. Grass Knot does hit harder than Rock Slide here. It's not going to be enough to KO, but it is enough to grab a shield from my opponent. Okay. I think to win this game, unfortunately, I'm sorry, Wailmer, I think I'm just going to have to sacrifice the Wailmer and use it as a wonderful whale-sized meat shield here for the damage from the Toxicroak. Toxicroak goes for Mud Bomb number 1. They're getting to Mud Bomb number 2, and unfortunately, they're going to get to Mud Bomb number 3 before I make the Body Slam. I try and make it there, but it's not going to happen. Bye-bye, Wailmer. You have done well. It's up to Dragonair to finish the fight. In comes Dragonair. Dragonair gets the farm down. The Lantern, of course, doesn't want anything to do with this. And in the back, it's Talonflame. I'm farming up and firing off the Aqua Tail. So this team definitely weak to the Wailmer in the back with the Talonflame, but unfortunately couldn't quite get the alignment. On the bright side, however, is this opponent is about to have a very tough day, courtesy of the Shadow Dragonair. They bait with the Flame Charge, and I'm going to fire off this Aqua Tail so they can't land that next Incinerate. And all I have to do is just survive the Water Guns long enough to make it to the double body slam, and that's not going to be an issue for Dragonair. I commit the shield, Dragonair making it to the back-to-back body slams, and that's going to be game over. So unfortunately, Wailmer kind of got sacrificed in the final fight there, but Dragonair putting the team on his back is going to clutch the victory, and that's a good game. All in all, I had a ton of fun getting to run my newly built XL Wailmer. It's by no means a Pokemon that I recommend building or like a must-have Pokemon in the new season. It's definitely a spice pick. It does have a fun niche role when it comes to just doing very well into a lot of the Skarmory plus water ground cores that have become common now that Skarmory is rank 1 on PvP. So in that regard, if you run into those teams, you can have some success, but overall there are going to be stronger water types. But it's a Pokemon that I've wanted to build for a while, and thanks to people on the Vigoroth video hitting the like goal, my hand was forced. I built the Wailmer, and you know what? I had a lot of fun with it, and it definitely did help that it had some very strong teammates. Credilli just feels extremely neutral in this new meta, and Shadow Dragonair, I would say a slightly worse than Arctibax, but not by much. Still very, very strong. Just occupies that core-breaking dragon role, helping to sweep endgames if Wailmer did get countered on the lead. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated, so thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.